Welcome to the Unstoppable Amazon Academy, and today we're going to be talking about Amazon reports. Amazon gives us a lot of really amazing information that will help us grow our business, that will help us to see what's going on. Are we actually making money? Are we in danger of being suspended? The thing is that most of us don't know how to use those reports. So I'm going to talk about some of the reports that you should be running on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and where to find some of those reports. Now, as Amazon evolves, the reports and the interfaces that we're going to be using are going to be constantly changing. So it's up to you to go to Seller Central and in the help section, look up some of these reports. Find out what they can tell you about your information. If you're looking for a specific piece of data, start looking through the different reports until you can find that particular piece of data in one of the reports. We use the reports from everything to restocking items to looking at if we should continue to carry a line if there's a lot of returns. We look at Amazon's guidelines as far as order defects and poor performing SKUs. So we know when there's a problem before Amazon knows it's a problem. So other things that you should be checking monthly is I think that you should be checking your inventory that's aged 90 days or over every month. And anything that's over 90 days, unless you bought it with the intention of a long-term hold. So if you bought a bunch of used textbooks and you knew that those would be sitting there for a while, if you bought retail arbitrage and you were expecting it to sell within the first month or two, and it's there over 90 days, then we want to start either adding it to a repricer, looking at do we want to enhance the listing, or maybe looking at repricing that item manually. We also want to look at the excess inventory, which gives you an idea if maybe you went too deep into a particular item. You should also be monthly looking at your order defect rate. You also want to be doing a profitability analysis, looking at which items are actually bringing you in the most profit. If you have Inventory Lab, it's a lot easier because you can just go use their analyze function and identifying which SKUs and which lines are actually bringing in the most profit into your business. We want to make sure that we're buying from the cream of the crop and that we're making sure that we get every penny out of the money that we invest in inventory. Now, some reports that you should be checking every other week are the return reports. And if you go under reports, fulfillment, and then the bar on the left-hand side that you'll see right here, if you go down to under customer concessions, you'll see the return report. On the return report, you can see why the customer returned the item and which items were returned. The bottom performance report, I'm going to go over how to find that a little later. It's in your seller performance tab, and that indicates what items are having a lot of issues. So maybe you're seeing a one SKU that's getting returned a lot, or that people are saying is defective, or saying it's not as described. Checking your bottom performance is very important because this is one of the main metrics that Amazon has had a history of suspending sellers for. Particular SKUs that are marked over and over again as not as described, Amazon's going to take a look at your account to make sure that there's no counterfeit activity. Inventory value is something that you're probably going to need to do by hand manually unless you have a tool like Inventory Lab. Now, I have a video to show you how to find your inventory value. And then you also want to make sure you're downloading your daily inventory value at the end of the year and making sure you know your cost of that inventory value so that you make sure that that inventory gets carried over for your accountant as an asset into the next year. You also, we use the inventory health report to check stock levels to see which items we should replenish. And then every other week, we try to make sure that the repacking option is still turned off. The repackaging option is that if somebody returns an item, then Amazon's warehouse will look at it, and if it looks good, they'll go ahead and put it back in the warehouse. We know that there were some people that were having suspensions for items being listed as new when they were used because the people who were inspecting these items weren't doing a good enough job. So that's something that we prefer to keep turned off. If you go to Amazon Seller Support and then just search in repackaging settings, this will come up, and just make sure it's disabled. The reason we check this often is because sometimes when Amazon does an update, they'll auto-enable it again. So we just check really quickly to make sure it's disabled. Weekly things that we look at are our feedback, stranded inventory, account health, and we look to see if we need to reprice anything manually. So if you are not using a repricer, you would check items to see if they need to be repriced at least once a week. If you have a repricer, you don't need to do this once a week. You can just rely on that monthly inventory check to see if things need to be added into your repricer. We only reprice items that have become stale, so items that we've had over 90 days. Before 90 days, we just leave them in our inventory at the price that we want for them, and we let the price kind of fluctuate around the product, and we don't lower our price to follow everybody else if an item were to start to lose its value on Amazon. Below here is where you'd see your feedback manager. Make sure that you're checking that often and make sure that you know which kind of feedbacks can be removed. If they say it was too expensive, if you sent it, if it was sold FBA and they say it arrived damaged, it arrived late, all of those things can be removed. If they say they can buy it cheaper at Walmart, if they say that they weren't happy with the customer service and it was a fulfillment by Amazon order, all of those things can be removed. Make sure you submit tickets to get any negative seller feedback removed if it's eligible, so that your feedback stays as high as possible, because that impacts your buy box percentage. On the customer satisfaction, if you go to performance and customer satisfaction, this is what you'll see on the screen. You want to make sure that you have all green check marks. The order defect rate is a combination of your negative feedback, A to Z claims, and service chargeback rates. So you want to make sure that you're following within those parameters. So you want to be looking at to make sure that your order defect rate never goes above 1%. Right here, where it says bottom performers, anything right here might be something you want to check to make sure that it is not an item that is being returned or people are complaining about consistently. If you see the same item on your bottom performers report multiple times, it might be a time to look at that product. Or maybe it's a product that doesn't do well via FBA because it's too delicate and it gets damaged too easily. And then there's also the recent customer metrics. So we're looking at cancellation rate, late shipment rate, and refund rate. You always want to make sure that you're doing everything within your power to stay below those targets. Also look at your perfect orders. So you can use a lot of this information to see how Amazon is going to be looking at your account. There's a new feature to fix stranded inventory. You can use this bulk fix stranded inventory, and you just follow the steps right here. If you click on the learn more, it will tell you more, but stranded inventory can especially happen if you're using a listing service like Inventory Lab, Scan Power, any of those items. It can happen on items that are listed directly through Amazon. However, it happens less frequently. You should be checking for stranded inventory on a regular basis. And then daily, you want to make sure that you're checking for messages and A to Z claims. If you have a customer message, you only have 24 hours to respond to it. Anything over 24 hours is going to affect your metrics. Make sure that you check that daily. Now, if you have items that you're frustrated because they're just not selling, what do? If you go to reports, business reports, and then on the detail, sales, and traffic, which is in the column on the left-hand side, you can see by ASIN, so by each particular item, how many sessions you have and how many page views you have. A session is if somebody comes to your page, leaves and comes back, that's one session, but 2 page views. So your page views should always be higher than your sessions. You can also see what percentage of the time you have the buy box. In this top item, I have it 59% of the time. But on this item, I'm never getting the buy box, which indicates maybe it's overpriced or maybe the buy box is suppressed for some reason. This tells me how many of each one of these units I've sold and how much of my total sales that makes up. So you can get a lot of information from this page. I can see that this bottom item down here, is getting a lot more traffic. And if I was holding the buy box more often, then I would be selling a lot more units. So you can see, is it that the item is not getting any traffic? Like maybe this item is not getting as much traffic. Is that the reason it's not selling? Or is the reason that it's getting a lot of traffic, but people aren't buying? So if you saw a lot of sessions, a lot of page views, you were holding the buy box, but not a lot of sales, that would say that there's something on that page that people aren't liking. It could be the price, it could be the image, it could be the description. What do I need to enhance on that page? If you see that there's lots of people coming to the page, but you're not getting the buy box, that can tell you why it's not selling. So you can use this data to kind of decide, is it that the product is not getting enough traffic? Is it the problem that the item is not converting? Or is the problem that I'm not having the buy box, so I'm sharing the sales with too many people? So that's some basics on Amazon reports. Make sure you check out our more detailed video on the inventory health report. And feel free to email us if you have any additional questions.